Imagine all the people living life in peace. Yes, of course. Just as John Lennon sang, we all want, or many of us want, the world to be united. Globalization certainly helps that. We are now able to connect with people living all over the world. We are able to see how they live. We are able to easily travel. So, is patriotism an obsolete idea? I think it is in some sense. I think that cosmopolitan attitude will replace patriotism, that soon we will be globally oriented rather than country oriented. But right now it may be difficult to open up the borders and become all one people. Why so? Because many countries are still not on the same level. And there are many countries where people think that violence is necessary, where they have no other means of dealing with their environment than violence. And they are maybe not well educated, so it is difficult for them to understand some other ways of dealing with the world. And there are some countries, many countries, which have similar values, and they slowly open up their borders to one another and make obtaining visas less difficult. In some countries, such as the European Community, visas are not necessary anymore, and people can travel from one country to another, live there, and work wherever they want. And of course, this is the outcome of the globalization, of the thinking about unification of the world. But many countries are still, many citizens of different countries are still prevented from going to some countries because there is a worry that they may not uphold the same values. So what do you think about patriotism? Is it an obsolete concept? I think that slowly we will open up our borders. It will not happen overnight, but over maybe 100 years, maybe sooner, the world will be one. What we have to do now, I think, is to educate people in the countries which are less developed that there is a way to uphold a social contract in a very peaceful manner, and to educate them and to help them financially and to help them in their development so that they can prosper and so therefore not have the need for violence.
Imagine all the people living life in peace.
In some countries, such as Canada, there is the melting pot policy, and so people of all creeds and cultures are living together. And of course, in those countries, the idea that the world will be one is very natural, and we are all expecting that soon the borders will be unnecessary. You know, in Canada we have a good social program because we worry that if we don't have a social program, there will be a group of people who are desperate. The people who have no money and live in very bad conditions, they tend to be desperate and therefore angry and therefore resort to crime. So in order to prevent that, we spend maybe 30% of our earnings on taxes and give the money to the people who need the money and create programs for educational programs for people to improve themselves and be able to get good jobs, etc. So in other countries, in America actually, although there is also a melting pot policy, but that melting pot is not really all that melting in America, in the States. There are more separated communities there, and so therefore the social program is very practically non-existent, very measly. The social program doesn't care for people because generally, for the poor people, because generally the system is just simply different. The capitalistic system versus the kind of socialist system which is in Canada. The capitalist system in the United States, even if Democrats are in power, but especially when the conservative people are in power, it supports the rich and of course doesn't really support the poor. the freedom. You have the freedom to do whatever you want, but you don't have the means to do whatever you want. So the freedom is very limited for those people who are poor. They can't get the health care that they need. They can't get the education that they should get. And so therefore there is a huge amount of people who are desperate and angry, and they live in very poor conditions, and so therefore they are often violent. On the other hand, in Canada, very little violence. Why is that? Because the social program takes care of people who are in need, and so there's nobody who has to do, kill or steal in order to survive. So the same way as we care for other people in our own country, in Canada, as we care for other people because we want them to create a good society, in the same way we should think about the world. There are countries in which people are more desperate because they have very harsh circumstances, and so we have to take care of their circumstances in order for the world to be peaceful.
You may say